we're looking ahead next. You should be able to see on your screens where we're headed today. And at 9, we're going to be hearing some reflections from within the Indigenous community and spirituality, but also some conversation on the importance of healing and where we are this day. I want to remind folks too that our day is being powered by sacred.org, which stands for the San Antonio Community Resource Directory. It's a directory of resources that are offered by congregation, nonprofits, government agencies, and compassionate groups in and around San Antonio to really get those resources that are close to where people are living. It's this great resource. You can find it at sacred.org. And they're really looking for volunteers right now, which is something that you can do at home to make sure that all of our community resources are as up to date and as current as possible so that everyone can find the resources they need during this time. So I'm going to now be handing this over to our next co-host, Vance Blackfox, for our 9 to 10 a.m. And I hope that Angelica is with us. I think I saw her earlier in the feed. All right. So Vance, as you can see, he's the team lead for our religious discrimination and diversity. And Angelica, our executive director for the Institute for Texan Cultures. I leave it in your hands.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Anne. It was quite a blessing to be able to hear from our mayor this morning and to be in reflection time with him and someone whom I believe many of us have agreed has done a great job at leading and serving our community, not just in general, but in our time of precaution and care now during these last weeks. And so I too am just really thankful to have had the chance to hear from him and to be encouraged by his words. So I'm glad that we were able to do that with him this morning. So thankful to be here this morning with everyone, especially with Angelica Docog, my friend, the executive director of the Institute of Texan Cultures, whom I get to do a little work with these days, and I'm just so thankful for that. And certainly I'm thankful to be asked to be a part of the faith-based initiative and lead the religious discrimination and diversity team. Thank you, Anne, and others for that opportunity. And I feel blessed to be a part of that work here in the city. So good morning, Angelica.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for your willingness to be with us this morning and to be in reflection with us and with me as we go through this day. I think that having a conversation about Indigenous thought and Indigenous presence in this time, as well as cultural healing or healing in general, which you and I've had conversations about a little bit over time, and really thankful and that we can get to continue that in this way. And but I'll just say welcome to you, and maybe if you could just tell us a little more about just briefly your work at the Institute and your time here in the city.
Oh, good morning. And again, thank you very much for the invitation to participate in today's day of reflection. So kudos to the mayor, to Anne, to you, Vance, Sacred Heart, and everyone who's participating. And I think, what's going on today is just so important. It's very reflective of what's going on in the world. This whole situation has really brought us together, as we've heard this morning. And that ties into what we do at the Institute of Texan Cultures, which, as you know, is part of the University of Texas at San Antonio, because we focus on people, telling the stories of people who have called Texas home. And so through that, we're able to really see the commonalities and also the differences. But as the mayor and Anne had alluded to already, is there's so many more similarities than there are differences, because I think people tend to think just because we might look different, we dress different, maybe eat different foods, but in reality, we are all the same, and I think that's the beauty of what's happening now, is people are seeing more of the similarities than the differences, because the bottom line is We all have a great love for our family. Again, regardless of your cultural upbringing, regardless of what you do, we have a great love for the community in which we live and serve, and we want to have a better life for our future generations. That is across the board, despite what people say. Those are the common denominators that we see throughout every culture here in San Antonio and then throughout the world.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yes. As I think about, you're mentioning, all of our cultures throughout the world, not just those of us here in Texas presently or in recent centuries, but I think about where you come from and your background and how you're connected to an Indigenous thought and Indigenous peoples that is different than mine. For those of you who don't know, I'm a citizen of the Cherokee Nation, which means that I'm Cherokee, a Native person from what is now known as Oklahoma, but originally our homelands were in the East, Georgia, Tennessee, North Carolina, and many other states in the beginning. And so, but Angelica also, if you wouldn't mind just sharing a little bit about your background, that'd be great too.
Yes, my father's Filipino and my mother is Mexican. Mm-hmm. And so we were fortunate that as growing up, my parents were adamant about us learning our respective cultures and other cultures as well. With my father being in the military, we had the opportunity to really travel around the world every 3 to 4 years, either here in the United States or throughout the world. And so whenever we moved to a new place, regardless of where it was, my parents were very engaged in their respective community, because for them, it was important for us, for my brother and sister and I, to learn that particular city or country's cultures and traditions, because then that's how we learned that they were very similar to our upbringing, because we were fortunate that we were brought up with the Mexican culture as well as the Filipino culture. Mm-hmm. and as well as with the American culture. So we were always having activities at the house because we were always celebrating. But that gave us this really great appreciation and insight to how people interacted with each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you for that. And that's as I've seen in your witness here at the Institute in San Antonio, your desire to make sure folks are represented and cared mm-hmm. for and the things that they need in regard to their culture, their cultural needs being met is important to you. And I appreciate that. So thank you so much for your commitment to that, even into your adulthood. So
thank you. Yeah.
I have been thinking a lot about today as a day of reflection in San Antonio, which, is pretty historic and pretty amazing. Right. And I hope that other folks have a chance to do these things. One of the things that I have been pretty excited by is that Native peoples, much like a lot of other folks out there, Native folks from around the country have also been having these types of meetings, whether it be church groups who are Native or health leaders, folks who are trying to make sure that Native people are informed, because Native folks and Indigenous folks, are already facing a tough battle in many of our communities just because of poverty and other issues. But some of those conversations that I've had elsewhere as I've been here in front of my computer with my friends and siblings and families, aunties, uncles across the country, I've been reminded of the opportunity to be Indigenous and to be Native. Mm-hmm. Some of my folks who know me out in the world, and being one of them, has witnessed me be really a leader that is a go-getter, who likes to make sure that everyone's voice is represented, especially my own sometimes. And so I've been pretty upfront and pretty blunt and pretty loud at times where I felt it was necessary. But over time, I've calmed and, but especially been reminded these last weeks about the importance of reflecting. Mm-hmm. I think about, I use this example sometimes. When we see it, movies, Hollywood doesn't always get it right sometimes. Well, most of the times they don't get it right for Native depiction on the big screen, the silver screen. But one thing that I think sometimes they do get right are those scenes where tribal folks, native folks, villages are gathered inside a teepee or in around a fire, sharing a peace pipe, either with themselves in a circle as native folks or with visitors, guests in their midst. And you'll notice that in those scenes, a lot of times there will be someone who is speaking, usually elders first, and everyone else is listening. And while that's happening, then people are listening because they want to take in what's being said, certainly. And then also after the person's finished speaking, there might be some agreement by a sound, right? Some acknowledgement, a shaking of heads one way or the other. But then there's silence, and there are people, and people are reflecting afterwards about what was just said before they speak again. And so, so I think about that, right? I think about how this moment where we're on technology and connected from between the miles, whether it be the 5 miles between mine and your house, or the 500 between mine and my auntie's house, you know, who's, you know, online sometimes doing this, leading this type of stuff. But so as I think about that, I'm curious to know, Angelica, you know, why do you think, you know, you've already made some comments, but why do you think a day of reflection or reflection during these times is important? What makes it important for us to do this for you?
I think because I've had the similar thoughts too, and as the mayor had said, this is very critical, because I think what this whole situation has done has really redefined who we are as individuals. It's redefined culture, and it's redefined how we connected with each other, because no one expected this. And as we said, this pandemic, you almost see this, for lack of a better word, this equality, because there's no preference to where the pandemic hit. It doesn't matter who you are, what you do, what color you are, or where you live. People of all ages, colors, unfortunately, were affected by it. And I think that's really surprised people, because there was no preference. Because sometimes when we see this throughout history, it's always targeted, you know, these horrible things would target certain segments of society. But today in the 21st century, this horrible virus has affected everybody. And I think that's really, it was a wake-up call for everybody to say, oh my gosh, that could have been me. Look, my friends who was just as healthy, they're successful or whatever or not, they were affected by it. So I think it really puts people back in to find who they are and what it means to be human. And I think this whole time, because we've had to stay at home, we've had to really do some thought process on, as I said, what it means to be human, and be thankful that you were not affected by this horrible virus. But yet, on the other hand, take that extra step of being compassionate. And so I think by encouraging everybody to participate in this day of reflection, but not only today, but every day, really think about what it means to live here in America, here in San Antonio, because as we heard earlier, not many people are as fortunate as we are. But I think it just means that it's time to have this reevaluation of who we are and what we do and what we can do to the community to improve the quality of lives for everybody. So it's not only yourself, but also having that connection to your family, to your community, and really the city.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. You know, your words about us, you know, what does it mean to be human, and what does it mean for us to be compassionate with one another, and the city, and Mayor talked a bit about that in the last hour. But I, you know, can't but help to think about when folks are now talking about this more online, in their posts, you know, Mayor, you know, we're on this together.
Right.
All of that really smacks of kind of a value that Native people have been living with for ages, for millennia upon millennia. I think about not just the Indigenous peoples here, but the Indigenous folks of Africa. You know, we have the theology that has been named Ubuntu, right, which is an African Indigenous theology where, you know, I am because you are.
Right.
I can't do this without you, and I, in fact, not even human if I don't have you, right? Sort of that reciprocity that Anne talked about earlier too, is tied up in that theology and tied up in that way of thinking for Indigenous folks in Africa. And then I think about you know, the Lakota who. And the Dakota and Nakota, who, you know, offer to us this great gift of Mataquiasin, which translates that, you know, we are all relatives, right? We are all related, and those ways of thinking, which are ancient, right, and have now gifted to us in the present day, hopefully a foundation. And maybe a new way of embracing one another, thought about one another, or even maybe just a moment of, well, yeah, for Native people, that's what we've been practicing all along, right?
Exactly. Because as you said, I think this really gives people a better insight, a better understanding to other cultures, such as the Indigenous cultures and the Native cultures who have done this throughout, you know, thousands of years. And so now it's interesting that many of other cultures are embracing these other traits, and that's okay. And I think that's the other thing that people need to realize. It's okay for you to, even though you maybe in your group, in your family, your culture, you didn't have the opportunity to reflect. Maybe it wasn't part of it, whatever, it doesn't matter. You can do it now. Take it from another culture. That's all part of what we do. Is that wonderful cultural blending of being able to interact with each other.
Yeah, absolutely, and that we're responsible for one another, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So I'm also curious, Angelica, you know, to know a little more, if you wouldn't mind sharing, you know, for those who are closest to you, your family, you know, as we, you know, we can talk about this in a macro way, in a large community way, which is important and necessary. But what for you is important for your family in regard to reflecting and taking this time?
Is good question. Is knowing that we're there for each other. Because I think for us, because we grew up in a military family, we were always moving. And so for me, it was really my family, my core family, my parents, my brother and my sister, that provided that balance for me, almost the security, because we moved all the time. So I'm always fascinated when people say, oh, I have friends since kindergarten, you know, since first grade. Or they went to the same school, which is wonderful, absolutely fantastic. I would love that opportunity. I don't even remember where I went to school in first grade. You know, by the time, you know, I graduated, from high school, I think I went to, you know, 10 different schools. So I don't have that connection, because, and that's important to so many, because that provides that balance. But for me, because we traveled so much, it was my family and my faith. We grew up and still practicing Roman Catholics, but my parents and my family, and then that, of course, as we mentioned this morning, has extended to my friends here, my family here in San Antonio, is being able to have that larger base that can give you that solitude, that peace, that encouragement. And for me, that's been very, very helpful in finding balance and finding harmony within myself, to help me, you know, go day by day.
Yeah. I appreciate that as well. I think about, you know, some of the things that we might practice day to day, right? So for me, one of my adopted moms, you know, I have certainly my mother, Anita, who I think might be, you know, joining us on YouTube today, but I also have an extended family of adopted family, and Native culture, Indigenous culture sometimes behaves that way, because the way in which we define family is very different than Western European definitions, but I have adopted mothers and adopted aunties and uncles and siblings and out there, and I'm just really thankful for that extended family. But one of my adopted mothers, who is a pastor at All Nations Indian Church in Minneapolis, continues to remind us to do certain things. So, for instance, we are encouraged to smudge, right? Lighting medicine in our homes to purify and to lift prayer and to take that time to reflect and pray. And that certainly makes for opportunity for me to be grounded in some ways and focused and connected, right? Because I know other folks are doing it. Beyond that, there are a lot of pipe carriers, right? Pipe carriers that carry medicine in those pipes who are indigenous, who are native, and who are out there who are at certain times during the day now, praying and using the pipe. And so culturally for me, that's one way that I, am able to remain grounded and focused. I'm just curious to know what are some ways or what are some wisdom you can share or actions that help you stay grounded and focused during this time?
I think is for me is doing the different readings and that have been posted, and then also the different readings from the different religions, from the Buddhist teaching to the Jewish teaching. And I think because the messaging, as we said, are all very similar. Every one of them builds up on each other. And also too, knowing that, as we said before, we're all in this together. And really being open to what is going on and willing to learn, because I learned so much by just reading everybody's comments and just talk and being frank with everybody, family and friends, and having the discussion, because that helps me keep grounded too. And then plus my own research, as I'm working on my dissertation. So the research I'm working on, the Indigenous women of Guatemala, and I've learned so much from them because that's very similar to our cultural traditions as well, in terms for the appreciation of nature, of the environment, of families. And so it's just really being able to learn from other cultural groups, and not only through readings, but also through exhibits. There's a lot of great virtual exhibits online now at the National Museum of American Indian History, Smithsonian, and others, that there are these wonderful and creative ways that you can learn and be inspired and find peace. Like I said, not only through exhibits, but also through music and through dance. And for me, that's very, very important part of my personal, cultural upbringing, but I know also for many others. And for some during this time, that's a new way for them as a means for expression. And I think that's another critical factor, is there's other ways to be reflective as well that can help you if you're not even sure how to do it, whether you want to speak to your God or whatever. But there are other ways you can think about it. You can draw, you can write, you can paint, you can dance. Those are other means for being reflective. And I think sometimes people are maybe reluctant or afraid because it's so different. But as you said earlier, many of our other cultures, this has been part of our traditions for thousands of years. That is why we have such this great history of art all over the world, for that this is that self-expression as part of a reflection.
Yeah, I appreciate you, listing dance as a way of reflecting, because I'm just going to confess here to you and to everyone else who might be joining us today, that I've also, I used to be a real big fan of dance, and was out dancing a lot. It was just a lot of fun with friends and others, whether it be, some salsa or some, techno or some hip hop or whatever it was. It was just something that enlivened me and brought out parts of me that, weren't there much of the time. And maybe that's, part of the reasons why Native people, use powwow so much. In fact, there's a social page now on Facebook, social, what do they believe it's called? Social distancing powwow.
Mhm.
That people can go and check out, social distancing powwow. And so folks are going outside their homes up north where there's still snow on the ground, and they're recording each other dancing, their traditional dance or powwow dance,
Mhm.
or singing just at the drum to offer people opportunities for dance. Well, I have to admit, I turn on my radio or my iTunes music and pick out different songs and just dance.
Mhm.
And I'm here by myself. Don't tell anybody. But that's something that I like to do and appreciate. But I also think about, in addition, while I'm an Indigenous theologian by training, I'm Lutheran. Indigenous theologian, and so my congregation is not too far from where I live, down here in downtown at St. John's Lutheran Church, and so I also find a lot of peace and comfort by listening to some of those hymns, right?
Yes.
That we have, whether it be on Sunday, because now they're recording and putting worship online,
Right.
but or just listening to other tracks of it, of music somewhere. A lot of my friends are organists who are sharing music, that we would be familiar to us in the Lutheran tradition, more so than maybe some others. But I'm also, I also call my church home. I don't know if it's home, but it felt like it. When I lived in Chicago, I went to Trinity UCC.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Trinity UCC with Pastor Otis Moss III, who succeeded Jeremiah Wright. That's where President Obama and
Right.
Winfrey and others have gone to church at times. And so that's where I was a lot of Sunday mornings, and where I've taken a lot of groups. A lot of folks don't know that I do cultural education and cultural immersion, right? And so I would take my friends with me so that they would, be able to understand a little more about me, because that's where I feel very fed, right? So listening to gospel music and listening to music
Yes.
from the Black community also is something that fills me. And I think maybe now is a time to look for those places of hope that may be different than ours, or where we find it normally. So whether it be powwow music or Lutheran church music, or Black music or gospel music, maybe I need to be looking in other places. And so I would just encourage us maybe to think about, where are those places that we normally don't go to engage with culture, that we now have the chance to do online in ways that's unprecedented, and really exciting. So I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Right. No, I'm glad you mentioned it, because that is so true. Because now I think it's the opportunity, because again, this is so unprecedented. I mean, who would have thought that that I would ever watch Mass online and still be okay? Have my grandmother say, "Oh no, that's okay for you," because you always have to go to Mass on Sunday. Oh, okay, we're going. But then now I sit here and I'm watching it on Mass, and it's good and it's okay. Who would have thought that even 5 years ago? But I think now, because of what's happened, like you said, almost everything is available online. So this is a great opportunity for those who's maybe looking for sources of reflection, for education, or just out of interest, is to go online and really observe all the different type of services that are provided. It doesn't matter your own faith base, but again, as a means of learning, as of experience. I mean, because would any of us would have gone to a temple for whatever reason? Maybe you were afraid, or whatever it is, but it doesn't matter now. You could just go online and look for a service. You can go to a Baptist church. You can travel to all these. That's what's so great about the internet. You can literally travel to all these worship places, and you could stay for a little while, zoom in, zoom out, try something different. And it doesn't, ideally to be in San Antonio, but you can travel throughout the world to look for different services.
Yeah.
This is such a great opportunity to learn and really pick up what you like, what resonates with you, and then integrate that as part of your own way of reflecting.
Yeah. It's funny you say that about the you can go find different places wherever. I've kind of done that a little bit, though I stayed within the Lutheran tradition in this instance. But it's Lenten season for us who are Christian, right? And Lent is important to many of us, and I've I've gone to Lenten service in Austin. I've gone to Lenten service in Seattle. I've gone to Lenten service in a small town in North Dakota. I've gone to Lenten service in Minneapolis. So certainly the opportunities are there. But I think with that practice, I'm going to I too am going to maybe make a bigger commitment to seek out different opportunities to learn. Because I think you're absolutely right. We need to take those opportunities, and now's a good time to do that. So thank you for that. You know, I'm thinking about a little bit about some of the things that Mayor Nirenberg had offered us earlier about, you know, his thoughts on reflection and reflecting and things that he does to stay centered and grounded. But he's been a pretty great leader, in my opinion, in regard to his response to how our city is to behave, and the example that he gives and serves so many others out in the world, in my opinion, is good. You know, it's very great. But I'd be curious to know too, and ask this question of Mayor earlier, what is maybe your hopeful vision for those who serve others, those who lead others, like the mayor, but not just the mayor, but other leaders in our community, whether they be church leaders, organizational leaders, corporate leaders, nonprofit leaders, leaders of museums, but university leaders, but in general, what are some hopeful vision that we might want to lift up for those who do serve and lead in our community?
And I think just to echo what you said, I think the mayor and the elected officials here in San Antonio has done a marvelous job at really providing a sense of security for the residents, because you know we all have friends throughout the United States, and no one, and other cities don't seem to have almost the organization that San Antonio has had, and also there's not. I know people are worried, but there's not this sense of fear because I went to Target the other day, and you know Walmart, and people are still, you know, actually there's not a fear that I sense in other cities, and that's really kudos to the mayor and others to being able to provide this sense of security that, okay, this is, you know, but being upfront, this is a dangerous situation, but we'll get through it together and we're going to move forward. But my hope is after this is for really everybody, community leaders, people, students, you know, children, is that it gives them a new appreciation for life and for each other, and to be more compassionate. Because I think in our own way, each of us have learned, you know, including myself, something so different because of this situation, because it's uncontrollable. This is beyond our dreams and beyond our control. However, but everybody, and again, thanks to the mayor, has remained positive about it. But nevertheless, it's made, as we said before, it's made each of us rethink what it means to be who we are. And I think, too, it's given us new priorities. And so as an educator, I hope this whole experience has really enlightened people to issues, to things that maybe they haven't thought about or haven't done in a while. The mayor had said, you know, people are now writing letters. I remember growing up, we used to write, and now being able to be introduced to new things and not be afraid. And I think that's the biggest thing, is that we'll get through this. And after this whole experience, I hope everybody is a better person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I do too. You know, as you say that, I think about one of the most prominent leaders in my life, who was a mentor, who was someone who continues weirdly to mentor me and so many others now, even now that she's passed. But that's Chief Wilma Mankiller, who was the first female principal chief, a woman principal chief of the Cherokee Nation. And in her work, she promoted the task of Gadugi, or that's a Cherokee word that means, you know, working together or responsible for one another, right? And so Gadugi plays out in many ways. And I think that one of the ways that we hope for it to play out in Cherokee Nation, you know, as well as for the rest of the world, is for Gadugi to also be one that where people are constantly considering our elders.
Right. Right.
Because there are knowledge holders, right?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe not just our elders, but our olders.
Right.
There's both elders and olders in our communities,
Right.
both very special and important, and we need to take care of them. So part of that responsibility for me, as we think about leadership and serving others, and not just maybe not just for people who are in leadership positions, right?
Right.
But those of us who may not consider ourselves a leader, that in this instance we have to be that.
Right.
We have to
Right.
be leaders for those who we influence around us. We have to be servants for those
Right.
whom we engage with, whether we know them or not.
Right.
And how do we take care of our elders, and how do we take care of our children who are the most sacred among us? From a Cherokee perspective, and I think from all of our perspectives,
Right.
you know, that's something that I think that we can do. And I think out of that, for me, grows this hopeful vision of not just being responsible for our elders and olders and our children, but also, you know, just a sense of this isn't about me.
Exactly.
This isn't about me. And I think that that may be a little bit about what you're saying, you know, and that, you know, we have some opportunity here to grow and to be and to do better. And so I appreciate those words.
Right. There's
Yeah.
there's a one of my favorite quotes by Mother Teresa. If we have no peace, it is because we have forgotten that we belong to each other.
Yeah.
And I think this is what this whole process is about.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think you're right, is we can learn through this experience and want to do a better job going forward to make it a better place for all of us.
Mm-hmm. Can you say that quote again for us, please?
Sure. If we have no peace, it is because we have forgotten that we belong to each other.
That's nice. Yeah. Thank you for reminding us of that. You know, some folks here won't know this, but I get to be the director of communications for the National Native American Boarding School Healing Coalition.
Right.
As my full-time job. That's a long organizational title, I realize, but an important one. The National Native American Boarding School Healing Coalition.
Right.
And a lot of folks don't even know, right? Most folks in the United States don't know, because we've done a great job of hiding that part of Indigenous experience and culture, that for 150 years there was a federal policy of taking children, separating families, but taking children from Native families and putting them in government-run and church-run boarding schools.
Right.
And so now we are working very hard at the Boarding School Healing Coalition to, one, educate folks, and do some advocacy work. We have some relationship with the United Nations and hopefully getting them on our side as we, you know, hopefully influence the federal government of the United States to do a lot of acknowledgement. But we also then do a lot of healing work. And you know, and that looks very different for a lot of different folks. It looks very sometimes maybe a little too systematic for folks, and then sometimes for other folks it's a little too churchy or too prayerful. And sometimes it's just a matter of teaching folks what healing opportunities they have around them. And so I'm just curious to know what are your thoughts on this time being one of healing for us? What have you seen or heard, or what have been your thoughts around healing during this time?
Thank you. It's been interesting because talking to good friends here and friends and staff, and just really a number of people that, because we have had discussions about healing and the different processes on how to heal, because I think each of us are so different, and the way we heal is different from each other, and that's okay. And I think some of my good friends were a bit surprised when I said that, because I think, again, for whatever reason, for maybe the way they grew up, they always thought there was only one way to heal. And so, and we had this discussion. I said, no, there's other ways to heal, whatever whatever brings you peace and being able to move forward with the issues that caused you to want to heal, and that is okay. And I think that's it is each of us has a different way of healing, and there's a lot of different resources and people who can help you with that process. And also too is, I think what's also important is that you're not alone in the healing process, because sometimes, as I've seen, just even the past couple years, people are afraid to say that they're healing. There's almost a sense of fear that if you say, no, I need to heal for whatever reason, I've heard and I've had people tell me, I don't want to appear weak.
Yeah.
You're not. This is making you stronger. And I think it's just acknowledging it is wonderful steps forward. That's part of the healing process is acknowledging it. Don't hide it. And I've seen that now, even just this past week, of being stayed at home, and you see people adjusting to this new lifestyle and to their own thoughts, and some friends, good friends, and some of those thoughts are the healing thoughts, and they're struggling. And I said, that's okay, but being able to acknowledge it, and also to know that there's resources to help you, that you are not alone in this process.
Yeah. I appreciate that. And that's, I appreciate you saying that, because that's really a lot of the things that we tell our boarding school survivors and descendants of boarding school survivors, because it was really not a great experience, and and then they passed down generationally that unhealthiness and abuse in some instances. And so I think you're absolutely right. We have to be okay with it and know that there are resources, that we're not alone. And thank you for acknowledging that folks sometimes see it as weakness, but instead it really is an opportunity to share a story. And again, then you're sharing that story, and your healing, once again, isn't, it is about you, and your sacredness, but it's also about all those in your community. And so that's important. My mother, Anita, her name's Anita. She's pretty amazing and wise. And she's in Oklahoma right now, hunkered down. Luckily, she's letting me boss her around a little bit, usually the other way around in our communities. But those of us who have parents whom we love, Indian country, are becoming really bossy these days, and saying, stay home. And so she's getting to work from home at this time. So I'm thankful for that. She went and got her groceries early, all those things. But she and I have been having a lot of great conversation. And some of you may have on the line may have also been seeing some posts of just places where Mother Earth is also doing some healing.
Right.
And our non-human people in the world, non-human people, our non-human siblings, the animals and the trees, and the sky, and the water, are getting a break. And in fact, I made a statement about that on social media, that Mother Earth just needed a break, right? And unfortunately, it's taking a toll on us as humans, as people, and I'm sad for that. But at the same time, this healing, sense of healing that and healthiness that we are so what's the word? Charged with right now, right? To be careful and to have precaution and to have care and kindness for the people, so that we can stay healthy and whole and do some healing, right? Well, Mother Earth is getting to do the same thing.
Right.
And that is so beautiful to see. There's arguments that, oh, it's not long-term, healing effect. I don't care. I don't care, because the reality is that there are parts of our world, Mother Earth, creation, that has not had a chance to take a breath.
Right.
And to see that happening now is so good for my soul and my healing, as an Indigenous person, but as a person in general. And I hope that other folks out in the world are seeing that, where water is clearing up, where animals are returning to different parts of cities, or at least letting themselves be seen. How many animals have I seen just in my neighborhood here in Southtown? right, lately, that I wouldn't have seen normally because there's so much traffic.
Right.
And so much pollution, and so I'm just really thankful for that. And again, this sense of, while we're taking time to heal ourselves in this moment, even if it does feel a little bit forced for some folks, that it's an opportunity for all of creation, Mother Earth, to heal in ways that has not been the opportunity for some time. And so I hope that other folks can really be about that too.
Vance, would
Yeah.
it be okay if we just start to open up the chat room? You guys can continue, but I wanted to tell everyone else, we're going to open the chat room if you want to add things. Thanks.
Yeah, if you have any questions, please let us know in the chat. I'd be happy to answer some of those. So I think I already know your answer to this, Angelica, but I do want to ask the question anyway, because others don't know your answer. But what are your thoughts? What can we offer folks on this call and out in the world around the question of, will we make it through this? What does that look like? What is your hope for our making it through this?
We will make it through it, and we will make it through this, and we will be better individuals because of the experience that all of us went through together. And I see that already. I saw that within the first several days of after we were asked to stay at home, because I have to say I was pleasantly surprised with. I think with people in general, because so many of us are used to doing our work. Each of us has our own patterns of work style, lifestyle. And we all know that if we get disrupted, sometimes that kind of throws us. And so, but I have to say, with this whole situation, and I think, again, it's kudos to the mayor and to his team, that providing the infrastructure to know that it's okay for us to change our lifestyle, because in the end, we will be fine. And again, it's that sense of security that we all have. And really, it's the trust that we have in each other. Because even with some friends, family members, everybody is okay with this whole situation, because everybody's positive that we will make it through this, and for this, we will be better individuals. We will have a better appreciation for each other, for the environment, and for life in general. And I hope that newfound appreciation continues forever,
Yeah, I pray that too. One of the things that I think is making me a better person, I hope, is the fact that I am getting to be home. You know that my travel schedule with the work that I do in Indian country is pretty rugged. I'm out of town a lot. Anne's always like, "Where are you today?" We need you at a meeting. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm in LA, or I'm in, Atlanta, or wherever I might be, doing some work on behalf of the Boarding School Healing Coalition or other organizations. But I've, coincidentally, I was going to be home for most of March and April, preparing for South by Southwest and Fiesta, of course. But coincidentally, I was going to be home and not traveling very much at all during these 2 months. Not so sure I would have gotten the same break because of things like South by Southwest or Fiesta, right? And now I think I'm becoming a better person, because while folks may think that I am an extrovert because I sometimes act like I am in my public existence out in the world, as a leader, as a servant, I'm really an introvert and can just really be by myself for a long time. And I'm finding this time to be by myself quite healing. I'm just hearing the rain hit my windows here in Soundtown. It's kind of beautiful. And so I'm really, becoming a better person, because I'm getting to, take some time to do that healing, and to maybe do a little grieving. To engage with medicine in a new way. I know a lot of my friends on social media, I get to see their paintings that they've been, putting on hold for a long time, or songs that they're wanting to complete, or, other activities that around the house that they've not gotten to, or just getting to see videos of their interacting with their children or their pets.
Right.
And so, you know, that while you know, folks who are maybe a little more social than socially engaged or socially energized, or energized by, you know, being social, um, may have different needs. For me, it's been the break. And I've gotten to address some things that maybe I wouldn't have had the chance to otherwise. And so I'm curious. What's that been like for you as you've been hunkered down, as you've been sequestered? What are some things that you've been doing that that has helped you maybe be a better person besides staying home in general?
No, similarly, because I see it, it's almost a retreat. Like, I mean, because for me, it's reevaluating, you know, what I do at ITC and ways that we can do better. And as you said, it just gives me that time to refocus, because you know, it's always so busy. We all lead such hectic lives, and now is that quality time to really think about what we do professionally and how we can do it better. So those are the words that, you know, ITC staff that we're going through now is think of how you can do what you do better. Because we all love what we do. What can we do better? So it's just that regrouping of our thoughts and what we do, just because we haven't had time before. So, and for me personally is that personal growth. You know, I want to read some more, and then I'm always eager to learn, and then really, you know, see, for me, how to be a better person, and then with that, how, you know, I could encourage others as well, and that has always been very important to me. It is really wanting to think of new ways or learn new ways to help others, for those who need the assistance, and whatever that is. And it's just that chance to refocus of, you know, mentally and emotionally and spiritually, because we, like you said, we haven't had this type of time, because even when we're on holiday, we're always busy, you know, going sightseeing, seeing friends or what have you. So there's never a time for us to have almost this sense of peace, this imposed peace, but nevertheless, and really be open to yourself, to have a conversation with yourself. And that's what I've been doing is, okay, the things have I been doing, is this really what I want to do, or what do I need to do to make me better at what I do as a community person, or as a museum director, or what have you.
It seems to me too, Angelica, what you haven't said the words, but I hear them in terms of letting go as well.
Yes.
We're about doing hard work, good work,
right,
every day, but that whole kind of question, is it the best work?
Exactly.
And then what do we then let go of?
Right.
Not just take on more to be better, but what are we given this opportunity, much like the earth healing,
Exactly.
the waters clearing. I just love that whole image of, it's Venice, I believe,
Right.
where the porpoises are now in the channels, and the channels are clear, and the silt of the living is settling down, and I just really have appreciated where you both have taken us this morning. I find myself, when I'm looking down, it's because I'm journaling. I feel like in this day of reflection, it's like one big teacher.
Right.
And I'm learning, and I'm writing down, the social distance powwow. I'm like, wow, I want to go there,
And I think, Anne, what you just said is the journaling is just so important, because you've seen even the past several years that has become very popular. You see these wonderful journals, these notebooks at Michael's Hobby Lobby and so forth. And it has, and I think now is the time for those who've wanted to, including myself, I have all these wonderful journals, but I never had time. you know, and so now I've seen, like you, I've been writing, and I think that's with a lot of people. I love to write. I love using colored pens. I love using gel pens. I mean, I love colored markers, and so for me, that's a form of expression and a reflection, and that's what I'm doing now. As we, you know, okay, I'm using a pink pen to do this, a green pen, but that's for me is how, you know, I help sort out my thoughts. And for me, that's a sense of, you know, a reflection is being able to write it down. So you're right, and is that writing it down, just literally writing it down, not on the computer, but on paper, I think is another art form that is, you know, is fading away, unfortunately, because of we've got the computer. So that's, for me, is exciting to see people literally writing, you know, in a journal on paper.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
yeah. To the end of the hour, is there anything else you two really need to say? Vance?
Yes, absolutely. I'm not quite finished. So, so we need, Angelica and I need 2 hours. Thanks. We'll have to get on the phone or video chat on our own, Angelica, and continue to share, especially during this time where we can do that. But I guess the last thing I'd want to share, and I want to say thank you again to Angelica, and to Anne, to all of Sacred, and Mayor Nuremberg for encouraging this to happen. This has been healing for me, this moment in time in my life, to have this conversation with Angelica and to be present here with others. But I guess the last thing I want to share is, you know, we oftentimes take our lessons as Indigenous peoples, as Native peoples, from animals. And so when I talk about new animals showing up here in Southtown, or maybe not new, but, you know, returning or coming out of hiding, you know, because we hardly ever see, you know, wild animals. I'm just really thankful for those moments of medicine that they're bringing to us to remind us of what's happening in hopeful ways. But, you know, I think about all of our Indigenous or Native cultures in the way north or the way south, but mostly way north, even in the United States, but into Canada and in Poland and other places in Europe and in Russia. But, you know, Native cultures oftentimes take a time to hibernate. The people take that moment during the winter to slow down. They've done all the work that they need to do to prepare for what in the summertime, for what they need for the wintertime. And prayerfully, all that works out and is put together for them so that they can have time. And the way in which songs are sung and the messages that come from songs or from dance or from stories even have a season for us. But they take that moment to calm themselves and to slow, not unlike the bear, or in Cherokee, we'd say Yona, right? To slow down and to hibernate, have done all my eating before I lay down, to take that rest and to rejuvenate, to reinvigorate, to renew, and to reconnect with who I am, whether it be through rest or just silence. And I think that this is a good time to do that for all of us. And it's one that, while we may have sadness around us and illness, in the moments where we can take advantage of that time to hibernate and to renew and reconnect. So thank you. Thank you.
Right at the hour. It's interesting how many of the words have R-E at the beginning.
Right, yeah.
So thank you so much. We're closing our this hour, and we're moving into the next hour.